Hi guys, this is my third attempt at recording this video, so I'm gonna skip on most of the intro stuff and just say welcome to Monday Night at the Movies with James here, taking a break from our regular book content just because I don't have any book content for you today. So today we are going to be talking about a film instead, and that film is Blade Runner 2049 by Denis Villeneuve, and obviously starring Ryan the Goose Gosling and Harrison Ford, and also Jagged Lego in the bottom there. So yeah, Blade Runner 2049. It's a sequel 30 years after the fact to the original Blade Runner, which was obviously a film by Ridley Scott. And unlike other 30-year later sequels from Ridley Scott's works, this one's actually fucking good. Yeah, let's not waste too much time talking about Prometheus and Alien Covenant. But Ridley, I just need to say, mate, do you just want to stop making shit alien films and maybe let Denis Villeneuve make one? Because he's done a fucking good job with this. Right, so let's talk about Blade Runner 2049. And let's actually just take a little pause and talk about the original Blade Runner. For those of you who may not be familiar with it, Blade Runner is an adaptation of Philip K. Dick's full-length novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which is about a guy named Rick Deckard who is a Blade Runner. In the book, he's a bounty hunter, and his job is to hunt down and kill, otherwise known as retire, rogue androids known as replicants, who have escaped from Mars, where the most of humanity lives, because Earth is a toxic dump, and they've escaped from Mars to Earth, so they need to be put down. Blade Runner 2049 picks up 30 years after the events of the original Blade Runner, in which Rick Deckard ran off with a replicant woman. Spoilers for Blade Runner. So he runs off with a replicant woman named Rachel, and in this film it picks up with Ryan Gosling as a Blade Runner, but also he's a replicant. But it's not like a super secret. Blade Runners now can just be replicants, I guess. I don't know if it's like the case where he's like the first replicant in the police or whatever, but I'm getting that vibe. I would need to watch it again to confirm that. I have only watched this once, so these are all sort of limp impressions. They're loose impressions from about 2 weeks ago when I watched the film. So yeah, Ryan Gosling is a Blade Runner now. He is obviously subjected to a lot of prejudice as a Blade Runner. So as a Blade Runner, he's got prejudice against him from other replicants, because now he's out there killing his own kind. And from the human side, obviously, they're not a fan of him because he's an android or a replicant, and they don't like that for some reason. I don't know if it's ever really explained why people are racist against replicants. In the original Blade Runner, like, it made some sort of sense because replicants were meant as only slave labour and only to be used on Mars, and they were illegal on Earth, which is why they were hunted down. But in this, if replicants are like legal, why do people hate them if they're just doing their job as they were intended to do it? That doesn't make a lot of sense, but maybe it's explained in the film. It's a very long film, so I can't remember everything in detail. But that aside, he's now a Blade Runner, and he is tasked with hunting down basically rogue replicants now. So replicants that go off program and they run off, doing all the things. He's got to go bring them in. So that's his role. He is then tasked with hunting down this lead on a mysterious, I think they find a skeleton of a baby or something, but he finds a baby that is born as a replicant, and there's another one out there, or something like that. So he is going down to find out what's going on here, because it looks like replicants, or at least one replicant, has found out how to give birth. And that's bad news for humans, because then people that look exactly like humans only will be stronger, will survive and take over. So that's going to happen. So he's been tasked to find them, and in doing so is put on the trail of our good buddy Rick Deckard, here played by Harrison Ford. So that's the story, basically. He's also caught in a little trap between doing the right thing for the police and himself. He maybe wants to help the replicant revolution, but also he's caught between with Jared Leto down there looking all sinister. Jared Leto is like the new head honcho that makes replicants. After the Tyrell Corporation of the original falls apart, he's taken over. So he wants to capture the replicant child so that he can dissect it and figure out how super cool replicants could be as humans. So that is more or less the plot that I can go into anyway. Lots of spoilers abound after that. So yeah, there's the plot was, as far as I'm concerned, the plot was really sort of serviceable for everything else. The plot of this film, as with the plot of the original Blade Runner, is not all that complicated, but I think this one made more sense than the original, because I think Denis Villeneuve had more control over the final edit than Ridley Scott did back in the day. The original Blade Runner has sort of notoriously been hacked up in its editing process, which is why there are about 5 different versions of it that you can find. And even the sort of the ultimate final cut that Ridley Scott released is not brilliant in terms of coherency. There's a lot that is confusing about it, and this one did a much better job, probably because it was just a proper film from the beginning, and didn't have to get sucked down in the fucking void of shit film studios, even though it was produced by the good people at Sony. So yeah, the story was good. I think the performances on the whole were really strong. Jared Leto, I always want to call him Jagged Lego, but because my friends and I call him that. But Jared Leto did a pretty good job. I think he has redeemed himself in a lot of ways from Suicide Squad, hopefully, in a lot of people's eyes. Even those spoilers, I actually quite liked him in Suicide Squad. Don't tell the fucking film police. Right, so yeah, he did a pretty good job here as the creepy villain. I think he had much more presence than Tyrell in the original one. His plan made a lot more sense. It was more, it felt a lot more sinister, and you could really sort of get behind hating the guy. And then there is obviously Harrison Ford making his return as Deckard. That's something that I sort of disagree with the marketing on for this. If I were going to change anything about this poster, it would be just to cut him out of it. And the reason why is because he's, one, hardly in it, and 2, it would have been a better surprise. It would have been a much better surprise if he was left out of it altogether, of the marketing. If he wasn't in the trailer, if he wasn't in the posters and stuff, it would have been quite nice to see him come back under those circumstances. As it was, I was sort of just sitting there half the time thinking, and when's Harrison Ford going to show up? Because I knew he was coming, obviously, and I was surprised at how late into the film he did come in. But I wasn't disappointed, because he's not the best. Ryan Gosling, actually, I was really surprised about, because all the trailers for this film made it look so weird. Like, it made the film look so much different than it actually ended up being, and I guess that's where the studio meddling came in with this one. But Ryan Gosling in the trailer looks like he's just going to be wandering about, looking at stuff and leaving, because that's what he does in the trailer. He doesn't really speak, but actually he is sort of the, obviously as the protagonist you'd expect him to be the sort of driving force of the film, and he definitely is. Like he's very good with all of his interactions with different people. He has to interact with replicants that hate him for being a Blade Runner. He has to interact with cops that hate him for being a replicant. He has to interact with his super adorable hologram girlfriend that he's has a little cute little relationship with. He's got like a little hologram girlfriend, I guess, because no humans want to be his mate. And like he has like, pretend dinners with her and stuff. And then he buys her a little pen so he can like project her around. It's quite adorable. That whole relationship. It worked a lot better than I thought it would. And yeah, I mean, really, that's all I have to say about the film, other than the obvious, which is Denis Villeneuve and Roger Deakins deserve all the awards for how fucking gorgeous it looks. That's really the biggest connecting thread between this and the original Blade Runner, is that both of them just look so good for the times that they were made. And in a world where every big budget blockbuster film looks so fucking samey, right up and including the upcoming big budget spectacular Ready Player One, which let me know if you want me to do a review of that, because I've got thoughts, and it's not out yet, but I've got thoughts on how that looks. So yeah, this one really surprised me. I didn't really like the original Blade Runner all too much. I can certainly respect it for what it is and what it did for the film, but I didn't like it from a storytelling perspective. This one does all of the things the original did brilliantly, and all the things it did not so well, and it just makes them all better. This is a case of a sequel done right, and Ridley Scott probably should take notes, because Alien Covenant was a fucking mess. So that's all I have to say on that one. Thank you for watching, and in the next video, which is a character study on Geralt of Rivia, I might say that there was no video on Monday, but that is now not true, because I changed my mind on Monday evening, and that video was filmed on Saturday. That is a peek behind my wizard's curtain. This was Movie Mondays, or Monday night at the movies, whatever I call it on the thumbnail, you'll see. And that's it, so I'll see you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want. Bye.